We've crowned the WTA Match of the Year in May. I think you never know. You got to be careful. Maybe we'll see a better match, but Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, Madrid final was pretty much as good as it gets. The two best players in the world playing at or close to their best continuously for over 3 hours, playing 3 close sets, neck and neck the whole time. Third set tiebreak. Come on. I mean, I don't mind in a match when there's, more like swings and momentum and ebbs and flows. This was almost like a horse race where they were nose to nose the entire time. So it's okay if there's more momentum shifts, in my opinion. But as far as, again, quality of play, just constant tension, no lulls, two best players in the world, big final. Yeah, it's going to be hard to beat that. And in all my years of doing Monday Match Analysis, which is the podcast that I've been doing for over 5 years, analyzing the ATP final every Monday, I have not once experienced so much demand / requests for me to cover and analyze the WTA final from that week. It's never happened, not even remotely close to what I read in the comment section for Sabalenka Swiatek. So due to popular demand, here I am. It is a match that I enjoyed every point of on Saturday from start to finish. I then went back today and just watched it again from, I watched the highlights and then I watched it from 4-all in the third set just to take in the conclusion of the match again. And these matches aren't always the easiest to analyze, believe it or not. When there's basically nothing between both players the entire time, it's like, all right, where do I go? Like, what do I talk about? Here's what I'll do. I'm going to talk about what I admired about each of their performances. I'll get into the 3 match points that Swiatek saved. I'll talk about the third set tiebreak that decided the match, obviously. I will discuss the 2 things that I feel like Sabalenka can do better in order to kind of get over the hump and find a win maybe next time in these conditions against Iga. And I want to talk about what this means for Swiatek in this rivalry, because I think it's significant in that respect. But I was most struck by an improvement that I think Swiatek made, or something that at least I think that she did better than I've ever seen her do in a similar circumstance, which is her decision-making. I thought her approach to the tennis was spot-on perfection, which hasn't always been the case against players like Sabalenka, particularly when things get hard on the scoreboard, particularly when she's feeling a lot of pressure in a big match. Against hyper-offensive players, Swiatek in the past has lost her discipline. And I think she doesn't like to be a passenger, and against players who present elite power and give themselves the green light all the time to attack, I think Swiatek has sometimes responded by, okay, I don't want to be attacked. I'm getting attacked, so I'm just going to change direction way too often, play with way too much pace, and ultimately lose her percentage tennis because she's trying to make these, hyper offensive players and try to take them out of their element, I guess. But in doing so, she loses a lot of the advantages that she should have. She should be the steadier player. She should be the player who is sometimes dragging points out with her defense and creating errors on the other side of the net. And she can't do that if she is bashing against the basher. She loses all of those advantages. I felt against Sabalenka in this match, she struck that balance. She didn't lose her discipline. She built the steadiness advantage that she should. She won some points with her scrambling. She solidified her forehand pace absorption by taking the ball cross court more often, taking pace off the ball at times, instead of reacting to pace by just trying to inject more pace. But she was also fearless when she had chances to dictate, and she was extremely aggressive on the return of serve, particularly when it comes to just taking time away. I don't think, she was necessarily going for lines or going for winners, but she made a really big effort to try to rush Sabalenka on the +1, which is key, because Aryna's just so deadly. She hits the wide serve. She drags you out of position. She, plays big into the open court on the +1. And the only way to really disrupt that is to try to catch her recovering out of her service motion and to rush her in a way that kind of blunts her power. Iga did that really well. For Sabalenka, I don't think she reinvented the wheel, but just watching her in these conditions, which reward her power, the altitude, the way the ball jumps off the court, because she hits a heavy ball. It's not flat and fast. It's fast and spinny as well. And then obviously the aggressive mindset that is just basically unparalleled on tour. The way she kind of sees everything, every incoming ball as her opportunity to attack and do damage. It just creates an environment where there's no safe spot on the court. And every time somebody's, hitting a ball, not only are they trying to get the ball in, they're also trying to put the ball in a place where they are not going to be hurt by their opponent. Ideally, they're not going to be attacked by their opponent at all. And you just got to think, when you're playing Sabalenka, where is that space on the court? Because usually it's, obviously short in the court. It's in the middle of the court. You could almost imagine it as, I don't think it's a perfect circle in the middle of the court, but, it's basically a black hole in the middle of the court, a donut hole, a danger zone. How big is that danger zone when you're playing Sabalenka? It's massive. Because time and time again, you see Swiatek, particularly in the forehand rally, she'll hit a ball with totally, by regular standards, decent depth and decent pace, and Sabalenka will produce point-ending damage off of that ball from a position that, for 99% of players, it's a neutral ball. So, that's the magic in Sabalenka, and in these conditions, it can just be overwhelming. Iga match point saves. First one was a nice deep backhand down the line by Swiatek. Sabalenka was on the run. She takes her forehand down the line and misses wide. More on that later. Match point number 2, it was in the same game. Iga hit a body serve. Sabalenka had to kind of lean to her left on the ad side, which is kind of opening up some space towards the deuce side, if you could imagine that, right? If I'm kind of getting out of the way of the body serve, moving to my left, I'm further away from the middle of the court. And Swiatek on her +1 forehand really ripped the ball cross court. It was a tremendous forehand. Wasn't a bad return by Sabalenka. The way Swiatek was able to generate pace, time the ball, swing really fast off of a decent return, impressive. A super gutsy match point save, that second match point. Third match point came in the tie break. It was another really good serve +1 by Iga. Serve went down the tee. She had plenty of time to kind of load up her +1 forehand from the middle of the court, but she was producing the forehand from pretty deep behind the baseline, and she hits a very heavy inside-out forehand. I think the topspin was key because it jumped up to shoulder height for Sabalenka, who tried to defend responsibly. She did defend cross-court, but it just went long. So it was a forced error by Iga. And it was almost good defense by Sabalenka, and she just missed it long. In the tiebreak, the key was actually Iga's free points. So Swiatek hit 5 service winners in the tiebreak on only 8 service points. and all of them went to the same place. They all came into the body. So there's two ways to look at it. And by the way, 4 of them were first serves. One of them was a second serve that I technically scored as an unforced error, not really as a service winner, but still an unreturned serve into the body. 5 out of 8 service points. That's a lot of times getting beat in the same serve location if you're Sabalenka. And to miss 5 returns off of body serves, there's really no positive way to spin that. It shouldn't happen. But for Iga, the serve speed was a real emphasis for her. And I also thought that she did a good job in particular of targeting that forehand hip, which is, I think it's a difficult spot for Sabalenka. Like, she's got the big backswing on the forehand and stands pretty tight on the baseline. And she's just jammable to her forehand hip, clearly. And Iga was able to take advantage of that with accurate body serves into her forehand hip with enough speed to actually get the ball into the body before Sabalenka had a chance to really effectively move out of the way. They both got tight off the ground. For as high quality as this match was, if you look at what they did down the stretch of the tiebreak, it wasn't great. And that's why these free points by Iga were even more key when you look at it. If you look at the last 5 returns in play points, and there was an ace for Sabalenka to save the first match point that she faced, and then there was a couple of service winners by Iga. But if you look at the last 5 points of the tiebreak in which the return actually came in play, 4 attacking errors were made, 2 each. So only one time was a player actually able to execute an attacking ground stroke without missing, and that was the 3rd match point save by Iga, where she hit the heavy forehand inside out +1 that drew the error. That was it. So you have these kind of erratic, you have this erratic play by both down the stretch of the tiebreak, that 1 match point save for Iga, but then it comes down to Swiatek was getting more free points than Sabalenka. And the tiebreak ended 7-all. Iga got a service winner into the forehand hip on the body serve at 7-all. And then at 7-8, Sabalenka missed a +1 backhand down the line, long. That was it, right? So that's how I would kind of dissect the tiebreak. I think for Aryna, there's 2 things she can do better. The first is defending down the line. I just thought that there were a lot of instances, and one of them was the first match point, where she's taking unnecessary risk defending down the line. And by the way, she did it on the next point in that game, on deuce, where she was forehand on the run, goes down the line, catches it late, misses it wide instead of going cross court. Sometimes she makes the ball and it still doesn't put her in a good position, because when you defend down the line and you don't do damage, you don't have as much time to recover your position on the court. So the cross court ends up being open, and Sabalenka defends down the line and never really neutralizes the point, because it's just easier to neutralize the point when you defend cross court. That was the one thing I saw over and over again where I thought that Aryna just left something on the table there. And I know she's an aggressive player. It's one thing if you have open court and you're countering from a defensive position and you're trying to attack from a defensive position because Iga is out of position. But I didn't even see that. I just saw random down the line defense where it just wasn't helping her at all. And then the other thing is her forehand return. Iga never really went T on the deuce side all match long. So it was body serves and wide serves, all to Sabalenka's forehand. And she still had tons of serve success. And for me, when someone is being predictable on the serve and still having a lot of success, that's on the returner. I feel like with Iga's spot serving in this match and her patterns, her predictable patterns, there's an alternate universe where we're talking about this match and I'm thinking, man, Sabalenka was able to land all of these beautiful offensive returns because Iga was too predictable with her serve location. Like, that's kind of an alternate universe. That, surprisingly, it just didn't play out that way. Maybe it's because Swiatek was just finding enough pace on her serve. Maybe it's because the body serve was just so effective in combination with the wide serve that she really didn't need to threaten with the tee. And just those two serves were enough to keep Sabalenka on her toes enough. But at the end of the day, to me, that's an area where Sabalenka can be better, is on the forehand return, because, she could sit on it. There wasn't anything really going to the tee. And on the ad side, it was a little bit more varied, but I still thought that Sabalenka could have returned better overall in this match. So those are the two things. For Swiatek, though, you look at this big picture in the rivalry. Head-to-head was 6-3 coming in. So it's not as if she desperately needed to make a statement against Sabalenka in order to kind of shift the tides in her direction or insert, extra belief in a potential, ahead of a potential Roland Garros meeting. At the same time, I feel like this was quite the stake in the ground for Swiatek. These are Sabalenka-friendly conditions. These are servers conditions. These are conditions where it's difficult to play defense and aggression is rewarded. These are Sabalenka-friendly conditions. And Sabalenka played her best tennis. The timing and the footwork was on point, and the ground game was firing, and she was hitting clean, and the errors were being kept at a minimum, I think, for Sabalenka, and Iga still won the match. Just barely. But the fact that Sabalenka couldn't create separation under all of these circumstances, playing her best tennis in great conditions for her, I think says something. I think just as importantly, though, if Iga can look at how she approached this match against an elite power player and replicate it against players like Rybakina and even Ostapenko, that could be where Swiatek really gets value in this final. Again, making that correction between creating a discipline advantage, using her defense, and just playing really smart tennis from a shot selection standpoint against a player who is making Iga uncomfortable with their power and their hyper offensiveness, for Iga to just finally kind of not fall into that negative trap against that kind of player in quick conditions, in a tight, high-pressure situation, I think can be really valuable for her moving forward. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.